The early morning wind swept through the cotton fields of Wilcox, a small town tucked in the southeastern corner of Arizona. It stirred up golden dust that coated the winding dirt road, leading to a weather beaten wooden house, the home where Emily Navarro had spent her entire childhood. Since her grandmother passed away, the house had lost its warmth. Now only a husk of what was once a sanctuary filled with laughter and whispered prayers. Emily stood at the gate, gripping the handle of an old fabric suitcase. Her dark eyes gazed toward the horizon, where the sun bled over the mountains like a slow moving fire. Today was the day she left this place, not with bitterness, but with a quiet resolve. There was no one to see her off, no final embrace, just a heart that throbbed with both sorrow and longing as she stepped into the unknown. She was heading for Phoenix, the pulsing heart of the desert, where dreams and despair coexisted in the same neon lit streets. The long distance bus hummed down the highway, cutting through endless stretches of parched land. Emily sat in the back, her petite figure pressed against the window. She wasn't classically beautiful, but there was something in her, an aura of gentle strength. Her skin carried the sun kissed tone of someone who had worked outdoors most of her life, and her dark hair was always tied in a simple knot behind her neck. She exuded a peace that caught people's eyes without them knowing why. Phoenix greeted her with its searing July heat. The pavement shimmered under the sun, and the dry air clung to her skin like ash. She found a room to rent in the city's south side, where most residents were immigrants or blue collar workers. The neighborhood was loud, crowded, and indifferent, but it was within her means. Emily took whatever jobs she could find. She cleaned motel rooms, waited tables, stocked grocery shelves. At each place, she gave her best, always thorough, always kind. Yet she learned quickly that goodness in the city was often ignored, or worse, taken advantage of. Her longest post was at Bella Vita Hotel, a mid range establishment with polished tiles and velvet curtains. There, she met Claudia and Serena, two young women who were everything Emily wasn't glamorous, connected, daughters of moneyed families. They sneered at Emily's plain clothes, her quiet nature, her insistence on doing more than what was asked. When a guest praised Emily's meticulous work, Claudia accused her of stealing. When Emily offered help to a newly hired immigrant worker struggling with English, Serena rolled her eyes and whispered, Saint Emily thinks she runs the place. In time, even the friendly staff kept their distance. No one wanted to be collateral damage in the girls' daily drama. But Emily never changed. Each night, she returned to her tiny rented room, cooked a simple meal, and opened the old Bible her grandmother had left her, its pages lined with handwritten notes in the margins. One read, In the desert, sand will rise and blind you, but those who bow their heads and walk low will pass unharmed. She clung to her belief that if she stayed true to her heart, the world would soften somehow. But Emily didn't know her faith was about to be tested more than ever before. August arrived in Tucson like a harsh, symphony blistering sun, buzzing cicadas, and the scent of scorched pavement lingering in the air. Emily had just been transferred to a new branch of the Bella Vita Hotel in downtown Tucson. Sleeker, grander, and colder. It was where the elite mingled, where the lights never dimmed, and where a person like her was never meant to belong. She wasn't excited. She wasn't anxious either. Change had become routine in her life. What job ever lasted long for someone like her? But Tucson was different, sharper, meaner. From the moment she stepped into the marble lobby, she felt the tension in the air. The employees here weren't just coworkers, they were competitors. Image was everything, and Emily's plain clothes and modest manners stood out like a bruise. Claudia and Serena had also been transferred to this branch, and their poison had followed them. Claudia now strutted the halls with even more entitlement. Serena had a new designer bag every week. Their eyes found Emily like they always did, scanning, judging, and mocking. On a rare rainy afternoon, an uncommon blessing in Arizona, Emily was mopping the hotel lobby when raised voices echoed through the atrium. She looked up. An elderly woman in a cream suit stood frozen as Claudia and another young woman barked at her. Apparently, she had sat in a reserved lounge chair, and the two had seized the chance to humiliate her in front of everyone. The old woman stammered an apology, but the girls laughed cruelly. The security guard nearby said nothing. Emily couldn't watch any longer. She placed her mop aside and stepped forward, her tone soft but clear. Ma'am, would you allow me to help you find a more comfortable seat? The old woman looked startled, then grateful. Emily placed a hand on her back, guiding her gently toward a quieter space. Claudia sneered. What are you? Some kind of saint now? Emily didn't respond. Her actions spoke for her. But in that moment, she had unknowingly altered the course of her life. That evening, a folded note slid under the door of Emily's staff quarters. It read, Emily Navarro, please report the ninth floor executive office tomorrow at 10 a.m. Daniel Cross. Daniel Cross, senior manager, known for his connections and his unspoken reputation with female employees. Emily arrived the next morning wearing her cleanest blouse and steadiest expression. Daniel welcomed her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I heard what you did for our VIP guest yesterday, he said, motioning for her to sit. I didn't realize she was a VIP, sir, she replied. Daniel chuckled. Well, she is. And lucky for you, she liked it very much. Then his tone shifted. But not everyone appreciates heroes, especially not those who go out of their way to attract attention. Emily blinked. Daniel leaned closer. Still, I like your style. Would you join me for dinner? Not professional, just two people getting to know each other better. Emily stood. I'll have to decline, sir. The smile vanished. His eyes darkened. You think you're above me now? Don't play that game, Emily. You're replaceable. Always have been. Emily walked out without another word. Later that night, rain returned soft at first, then relentless. Emily walked alone through a side street on her way back from a grocery run. Her umbrella had snapped under the wind. Her clothes clung to her body. But worse than the storm was the sudden realization that someone was following her. She turned. A woman furious, her makeup ruined by tears and rain, stood a few feet away. You little leech, the woman spat. I know you're trying to steal him. You think I don't see it? Just because you play the innocent? Emily froze. I don't know who. Before she could finish, the woman raised her hand, and that's when he appeared. Stop! A man ran up from the other end of the street, stepping between them. He wrapped his coat around Emily, shielding her. I suggest you leave before this gets worse, he told the woman. The woman glared, then stormed off into the night. Emily looked up. It was Marcus Callahan, tall, calm, and entirely out of place in this chaotic street. My mother told me about you, he said gently. She didn't mention you'd need protecting too. Emily clutched the coat tighter. It was then that she realized he was the son of the woman she'd helped at the hotel. And in that moment, under the rain, beneath flickering streetlights, something changed. Not just in Emily's life, but in the way Marcus looked at her like a storm had just passed, and she was the calm left standing. After that rainy night in Tucson, Emily was placed on temporary leave to rest and recover. But she knew what it meant. It was the hotel's quiet way of sweeping things under the rug. Claudia and Serena still strutted through the halls. Daniel disappeared for a few days, but no one mentioned what happened. No one asked if she was okay. She had never expected anyone to. Except now, there was one person who had shown up when she needed it most, Marcus Callahan, the son of the woman she had defended, and the man who had stepped between her and humiliation without hesitation. 2 days later, As she was packing up her things at her boarding house, a handwritten note slipped under the door. I'm Marcus Callahan. My mother told me about you. If you have time, I'd like to buy you lunch to thank you. Address below. No pressure. Emily stared at the note for a long time. She didn't know what she felt, cautious, curious, maybe both. The handwriting was neat, direct, no embellishments, just a quiet invitation. The next day, she found herself at a small cafe in downtown Phoenix. The walls were brick, the lights warm, the scent of cinnamon and espresso lingering in the air. Marcus was already there, not in a suit, but in a beige button down shirt and rolled sleeves, looking more like a teacher than a CEO. Thank you for coming, he said with a soft nod. Emily gave a slight smile and sat down. They didn't speak much at first. The silence between them wasn't awkward, just unspoken. Then, slowly, as the minutes passed, the words found their way. He spoke of his mother, Vivian Callahan, how she rarely trusted people, how she had once worked as a battlefield nurse before marrying into wealth. He said his mother had called Emily, a girl who gives without needing anyone to notice. She said, You reminded her of who she used to be, Marcus added. Emily didn't know what to say. She also said, Marcus continued, that not everyone who wears a uniform is a hero, and not every hero wears a uniform. Some just wear an apron and a kind smile. In the days that followed, Marcus began appearing in quiet corners of her life, not as a savior, but as someone simply present. He stopped by the cafe where she worked, left notes like hang in there or lunch on me today. He didn't ask questions, didn't pry. He just showed up consistently in small ways that started to matter more than Emily expected. Then one afternoon, he invited her to visit the headquarters of Collagen, the biotech company he led. Not for a job, he clarified, but to show her something. He took her to the fifth floor, into a sunlit room with whiteboards, flyers, and a team of people brainstorming around a large table. This is Phoenix Rising, Marcus said. It's a program we're building to help women like you women who've been mistreated in the workplace, who've been silenced or sidelined. We offer free training, job placement, legal support. Emily looked around the room. She saw no glamour, no red tape, just real people trying to build something real. I'd like you to join, Marcus said, as a community advisor. She blinked. But I'm not qualified for. Yes, you are, he cut in gently, because you've lived it, and you survived it with grace. For the first time in years, Emily felt something unfamiliar stir in her dignity. Not the kind given by titles or diplomas, but the kind born from being truly seen. Not long after, Daniel Cross was suspended pending investigation. Surveillance footage from the hotel and multiple testimonies, including Marcuse's own report, triggered a formal inquiry. Claudia and Serena were quietly removed from the employee roster. Emily wasn't there for revenge, but knowing that truth was finally speaking louder than whispers, that mattered. Weeks later, she stood in front of a community room filled with women. Some wore business casual, others wore secondhand clothes, but every eye in that room was on her. I used to think being kind meant being weak, she said into the microphone. That silence was safer than speaking up. But the truth is, being kind when the world is cruel, that's the hardest thing to do. And the bravest. Marcus stood at the back, hands folded, watching her not with pride, but with quiet awe. After the speech, he handed her a small leather bound notebook. For your story, he said. Emily took it with both hands. Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry. Not yet. That night, Phoenix shimmered under a violet sky. Emily sat on the small balcony of the new apartment Marcus had helped her find simple, safe, with a view of the city lights. She hugged the notebook to her chest and breathed. She wasn't someone's shadow anymore, not someone's pity case. She was Emily Navarro whole, wounded, healing, and for the first time in a long while, she felt ready to hope again. November brought a gentler breath to Arizona. The desert was still dry, still vast, but the harsh winds had softened, replaced by cool breezes that stirred the red dust quietly across the plains. Even the saguaro cacti seemed to stand taller in the mild light. In that stillness, Emily Navarro was no longer a girl merely surviving. She had become someone who healed, someone who gave. She had accepted the position at Phoenix Rising as a community advisor. Each day she stood beside Marcus, guiding women who, like her, had once been told they were nothing. She helped them write resumes, prepare for interviews, file reports. But more than that, she listened to stories of fear, betrayal, silence, and she answered with compassion, never pity. Marcus continued to lead Calajan with quiet focus. He still wore suits, still walked with the weight of the company on his shoulders, but those closest to him noticed something different. He smiled more. He lingered after meetings, and every time his eyes met Emily's across a room, something unspoken shimmered between them. They never defined it, never rushed, but it was there in the way he handed her a coffee every morning without asking, or the way she tucked handwritten notes into his folders when she noticed he'd been working too late. Then, the past returned. Claudia was back on the headlines not as a hotel heiress, but as a key player in a fraud scheme led by none other than Daniel Cross. After their dismissals, they had joined forces, misusing data from charity programs to create fake beneficiaries, laundering donations meant for real women in need. When the story broke, Marcus called an emergency board meeting. Emily watched from the corner of the room as he stood tall before shareholders and legal teams. We built this program to protect the voiceless, Marcus said. Anyone who used it for greed will face the law. No compromise. A week later, Claudia was arrested. Daniel turned himself in soon after. Justice, slow but certain, had arrived. That night, Emily returned to her apartment to find Marcus, waiting by the steps. He held no papers, no files. I don't know how to do this right, he said, almost shyly, but I'm tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel. Emily's heart slowed. I used to believe loyalty and kindness were signs of weakness, but then I met someone who did everything for others, never asking for anything in return. Someone who reminded me what it means to believe in people, in healing, in starting over. The streetlight cast a golden glow over them. Emily stepped closer, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. You don't need to know how, she whispered. You're here. That's enough. He gently wrapped an arm around her. And for the first time, neither of them felt like they were carrying their pain alone. 1 year passed. Phoenix Rising expanded to other cities Tucson, Flagstaff, Santa Fe. Emily became its heart and soul, appearing not on magazine covers but in school gymnasiums and church basements where real people came for help. Marcus remained CEO, but his office door was always open. His schedule always made room for the things that mattered. His mother, Vivian, now well and smiling more often volunteered beside Emily at weekend workshops. As for Emily, she never sought the spotlight. She still wore her modest dresses, still baked muffins for the team on Fridays, but she walked differently now, straight, freer. And the women she mentored, they didn't see her as a survivor. They saw her as proof that dignity doesn't come from power. It comes from how fiercely you protect the goodness in you, no matter who tries to take it. One late afternoon, Emily stood atop a sun drenched hill outside the city. Below her, Phoenix shimmered in the orange light of dusk. The wind tugged gently at her hair, and in her hand was the same leather notebook Marcus had given her a year before. Inside were stories not just hers, but the voices of dozens of women she had helped and who had helped her in return. She smiled. Sometimes it only takes a small act of kindness to change a life. Sometimes all it takes is refusing to break, even when the world insists you should. And sometimes when you walk long enough through the desert, you find that what waits beyond is not emptiness, but hope.